puzzling event took place while we were traveling by steamer to Hoed-de-Vries, the location of the upriver station of the Berbice Timber and Balata Company. By we, I mean Mr. Ralph Nevinson, his daughter Jessie, and myself. It was Mr. Nevinson, the head of the company, who invited me to take the trip with them. He told me he wanted me to do some jungle scenes for the company's head office, which was being renovated. Artist to the bone, I jumped at the offer. And, as I said, we were traveling upriver, the Berbice River, by steamer. It was during that journey that Jessie Nevinson claimed to have heard someone playing a flute on the lower deck. But there was no flute. At least I heard none. I might have written off the whole thing, except for the fact that Mr. Nevinson, who came up shortly afterwards, confirmed her claim. He said he too was hearing a flute. Jessie had told me earlier that her father was acting strangely. Now it seemed to me that they were both acting strangely. No wonder. It was a strange story. It's the story I'm telling. The story I've come to call My Bones and My Flute. It is true that, as I've mentioned, I'm a romantic. But under my romanticism, I'm a strong rationalist. And I can state quite frankly that not for an instant did I believe that any supernatural influences were responsible for the incident I have just described. I was convinced that there must be some natural explanation for the fact that Jessie and her father could hear a flute, while I could not. So without delay I told her to sit in my chair and wait until I returned. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going down to make inquiries on the lower deck," I told her. "Let me come with you," she said. "I don't think your mother would like the idea of a respectable young lady like her daughter venturing among the rabble of the lower deck." She told me to stop being sarcastic and accompanied me below. The second mate and I were already acquainted. He was one of my barber shop companions in debate. In reply to my inquiry, he said, "A ukulele and a mouth organ, the only instruments we got down here as far as I know." I asked no questions. "But what about the passengers? You're sure none of them have been playing a flute during the past few minutes?" "No, Mr. Woodsley, not down here. I been here all the time. I woulda hear it. Only Mitchell and his ukulele been playing." Jessie came in at this point. "But I'm positive I heard a flute. My father heard it too. And it came from down here." The second mate smiled and shook his head. "Not down here, miss. I can swear to that. Nobody didn't play no flute on this deck today. Aubrey, one of the deckhands, got a mouth organ, and Mitchell there got his ukulele. And that's the only musical instruments I hear on this boat. None of the passengers didn't play no instruments since we left downtown this morning." As we returned to the upper deck, Jessie said, "Well, that's the queerest thing I've ever known to happen. If it wasn't a human being who played that flute, then it must have been a jumbie, because I did hear it, as plainly as I can hear you speak." "What was the tune?" I asked. "Did you recognize it?" "It was no particular tune. It was as if the person was practicing his notes or something. Or it might have been something highbrow." She gave me a teasing glance. "Like one of those dry as dust pieces you like to listen to." "I see," I said. "Remember there's a piece you used to play on that portable gramophone Ronald had? Something about a faun? Debussy's L'après-midi d'un faun? That's the one. It was a tune like that. A kind of aimless, wandering thing." "What about the previous occasions on which you heard it? Was it always the same tuneless, wandering thing?" "Yes, always the same. I never really paid any attention to it. I heard it coming from somewhere in the neighborhood and didn't think anything of it." "You never remarked on it to your mother or father?" "No. Why should I have?" Some violin or piano or saxophone is always making a noise. A flute was nothing so unusual to comment on. That sounds fairly reasonable, I said. And don't you remember exactly on what day you began to hear it? She laughed. What's this now? Am I in the witness box? But she shook her head. No, I don't remember the exact day, but it wasn't more than 2 weeks ago, I'm sure. Our place isn't very far from yours in Queenstown, just around the corner, and I can assure you I've heard nothing like a flute during the past few weeks. Well, either you're deaf or I'm enchanted. No, but joking apart, I'm puzzled, Jessie. You're not renowned for your brain, it's true, but I'm sure that even you wouldn't go imagining things like this. And as for your father, I don't think there's a more level-headed man in the colony. Here's Mother. I wonder if she didn't hear it too. Mrs. Nevinson approached us, the slight smile on her face widening the nearer she came, the smile which to myself I called her drawing-room smile, for she had a way of switching it off and on that was decidedly mechanical. It was an attractive smile, but so obviously studied. It was not until she had arrived at where we sat that I observed that there was a slightly troubled light in her eyes, despite the smile. What mischief are you two up to here? She said. Milton is trying to convert me into a highbrow. We're discussing flute music, Jessie said. Don't let her plague you, Milton. I wish you could get her really interested in music. Nowadays everything is this jazz, and Jessie simply laps it up. She sighed dramatically. Most of her gestures are dramatic. She's one of those people who act rather than live their lives, and whose gestures should never be taken literally. Jessie, have you said anything to your father to upset him? She asked. To upset him? No, why? Well, he's certainly not himself. He wants to make out that it's the heat and that he's tired, but it doesn't seem to me a good enough reason why he should settle down alone in the dining saloon to smoke and look through old papers. Jessie shrugged. I don't know what it's all about, but Daddy hasn't been himself for weeks now, since he came back from Hood de Vries last month. I told you so, but you would insist it was overwork, Jessie said. But what would he want to get down in the dumps for because he went up to Hood de Vries? He was only there for a night last month. What could have happened up there to upset him? That's what I'd like to know myself. Oh, but wait. Have you heard about the latest mystery, Mother? There's a jumbie flute on the steamer. A what? Didn't you hear it? You don't mean you're one of the deaf ones? After the situation had been explained to her, Mrs. Nevinson cried, That's utterly impossible, child. You and your father are both dreaming. If there was a flute on the lower deck, why didn't Milton and I and everybody else hear it? And I don't remember hearing anything like a flute in Queenstown during the past week or so. Old Mr. Cully used to play one, but he's dead now, and I don't know of anybody else who has one. What time did you hear it mostly, at night? It wasn't a nightmare, if that's what you're trying to hint, Jessie said. I've heard that flute at all times of the day and night, and I was very much awake. I've heard it in the middle of the morning. I've heard it in the afternoon when I was having a bath, and I've heard it in the evening. One night late when I was coming home from the Selkirks with Randolph Hart, I heard it. We just got to the corner of Ferry Street. That would be near where Milton lives. Perhaps it was Milton himself. Milton has such surprising habits. It won't amaze me to learn that he's a flute player in secret. Just so, I murmured. I turned to Jessie as something occurred to me. Jessie, can you remember if it was constant in pitch, or did it sort of vary, rise and fall with the wind? You know how sounds vary in Queenstown, depending upon the wind? Her mother laughed her gay, roguish laugh, which had never failed to quicken my heartbeats. I believe I must still have been in love with her. For though she might have been artificial in her behavior, Mrs. Nevinson could not be described as lacking in charm. Changing the key of her mood, so to speak, in her characteristic fashion, she gushed, "But Milton, you don't mean to tell me that you're taking her seriously about this flute?" "And why not? Why shouldn't I? Personally, I think it is the most mysterious incident. I'm sure both Mr. Nevinson and Jessie wouldn't have imagined hearing a flute on the lower deck. Oh, Lord, I suppose I should have known without your mentioning it. In many ways, you're exactly like Ralph, always ready to make a mystery over something so as to give you an excuse to spend days and weeks puzzling over it and delving into old books and papers. Anyway," she went on, with another grand sigh, "I do hope Ralph won't keep up this mood for days, as he sometimes does. As it is, it's most embarrassing for me, his going into the dining room with those old papers. Mr. Lumsden must feel quite slighted. And poor Mr. Herrick, he was so eager to talk over the cattle situation with him." After she had left, I repeated my unanswered question of a few minutes before regarding the flute. And Jessie replied, "No, I won't say it varied in pitch with the wind, but now you mention it, something has struck me. During the last 2 or 3 days, it seemed to have got nearer." "Nearer?" She nodded. "That's the best way I can describe it. When I began to hear it a week or 2 ago, it seemed to come from a distance, a few streets off. But yesterday and the day before, it was much nearer. In fact, it might have been in the next yard." She looked at me in sudden anxiety and alarm. "I say, Milt, you don't think there can be anything spooky in it, do you?" Jessie continued to talk. "It's no joke. I didn't think anything of it before, but now that Mother and the rest of you say you didn't hear anything, I'm beginning to wonder about it. You don't think it could be some sort of manifestation? Isn't that the word? Something only Daddy and I can sense?" I said, "I'm afraid I don't care to express an opinion yet." My voice was heavy with pomposity, as it could often be in those days. That pomposity was to go as the story unfolded. The story I've come to call My Bones and My Flute.